short. No, but it's a ritual of summing up everything. I want that sum up ritual to be awesome, excellent, truly special. At minimum, me. It was me. Yes, that constituted me. That was my life. Okay, you're not going to be able to do all of these things, or at least not have control. And even besides this, just as a general life principle, there will be the fact that you'll have to accept you're not going to be able to get everything. And then saying, okay, at the end, what do I want to look back with bittersweet fondness about how I lived my life? When you sort of accept that sort of, you have to slay possibilities to feed the possibility you want the most to take place. All right, so adding to the problem is my lack of rootedness in, well, anything. I lived in 3 different countries as a child, and even when my family settled down in Canada, we always moved around a lot. There are very few physical places or objects that I would point to and call home. Instead, home for me is a series of relationships and associations that I carry with me wherever I go. And even these can change over time. I go through hobbies and political ideologies quite quickly too, none of them lasting all that long. I get ideas for stories, books, most of which I'm not disciplined enough to fully develop and write down. Okay? Well, those are 2 different things. One is taking something to completion. The other is getting tired of eating that. Because you might actually have something you never get tired of. I like eating that, I like, gathering that, but I never quite flip it over into a outward production. Okay. Anyway, I'm rambling a lot about my life and self, but I think the stuff I'm talking about is a common Nyy'xai problem. Yes, I think, humans in general, and more so gatherers. Yeah, and the Nyy'xai then have the most yin of those powers, so it's a little more challenging to dial into concrete reality. I feel like a ship without an anchor, always moving and often more at a whim of the wind or the waves than by my own direction. Okay, so I think what you need to ask yourself is, because these are kind of overlapping elements, what gives that groundedness? Would it be tradition, like a marriage or something? Would it be location, a home or some place that you've lived in for more than you've lived in any other place? And then after that you feel like, ooh, I'm making roots. Or is it associations? Is it a cause? Is it perhaps something like you're building the story of you, like a diary? I think sometimes something that Nyy'xai do, and later in life they do a lot with memoirs and so forth, is that is the touchstone of keeping track of all that you are, and there's a continuity to it. So I don't know what those things are. It can be a combination of those things, but that's for you to decide. Knowing what would be that for you, or what could be that for you, what the range of that is, tells you what options you have to make that satiated. My biggest fear is chasing after so many different things that I end up accomplishing nothing in life. No family and no successful career either. Just endless amount of chasing after dreams that, like a mirage in desert, always prove illusory when I finally get too close. Okay, what can Nyy'xai do to counter this tendency? In simplest terms, going back to the thing I said with the stories at the end of them, deathbed, or very, very, very late in life, and you're thinking about your life, what do you want to think? But to get here, I told you, to do the other ritual of, you had to realistically understand how life works. Otherwise, every time you look back, you're always unhappy, but that's because you're trying to combine 5 lives. You could have the most awesome single life. There is, but it breaks the rules of reality to try and actually squeeze more. And Nyy'xai are really good at actually squeezing what a lot of people think is 2 or 3 lives worth of stuff, 2 or 3 careers worth, whatever, travels worth, relationship work, all kinds of things like that. But in reality, there will always be an amount that you can do with your life, and then there will be a different selection of what you could do with that amount. And it could go in big directions or small directions, but you could basically allocate all of your gifts to going a certain direction and blooming your life tree in that way. But you cannot make a tree 2 trees. Do you know what I mean? Although you can combine and have relationships and so forth like that, but social alchemy. But no, there is still the fact that you are a single peak pathway that you can expand as much as can be expanded, and that will be mind-blowing, and you can do that and have an amazing life. But you'll have to pick what kind of amazing, and that will mean that other kinds of amazing you won't have done. And thinking in those terms of looking back on my life, on my deathbed, in storybooks, in history, blah, blah, what do I want to kind of like sum me up? And then, well, before then, making sure you have that lens update of I can choose one, and I really can't guarantee all of that. I can choose a way, and I can push to get variables to go more my way in the randomness of life. But, yeah. Okay, so anything else to wrap up here? Ask why for each item. Yeah, I think I went over that. Okay, one thing that I see coming up here is I end up accomplishing nothing in life at all. No family and no successful career either. Okay. Those are some things, but those aren't the only 2 things. For example, you say up here, a part of me wants to continue traveling. I've been to 23 countries so far. Why did you tell me that? You could say it's just sort of relevant fact, but technically it's actually not, because you're saying you want to keep traveling, so really it is the lust for travel, desire for travel, the drive for travel that you're trying to communicate to me. That's a track record. That doesn't actually say necessarily your drive. It does say to some extent what your drive has been in the past, but you're talking about your drive going forward. So I could be wrong. I think there is a bit of pride in that. You take pride. I've been in 23 countries. And they're saying travel to other countries, like that's a thing. But you didn't mention it down here. No family and no successful career. Not saying those aren't 2 very big, powerful things. They are. But you only constellated the things that are accomplishments as one part of the argument. But up here, being in 23 countries is an accomplishment. And I think you're proud of it. And I think, just personally, I think it's really cool. If someone told me they've been in 23 countries, I'm like, that's really cool. That's really cool. I like people who are, because I tend to be more of a Lair Lab person, but in my day I have traveled. But traveling in the mind, people are willing to do that, and traveling out in the world. I think that's cool. But not everyone does. Question is, do you? And it looks like you do, but how much? But I think you should note with your Z, down here in the math, no accomplishment in life, no family and no career. But you mentioned 23 countries, that's an accomplishment. That's why you put it there. And I acknowledge his accomplishment, and I thought it was cool, so that's a thing. So then you would have more than that if you went to Japan and then jumped around to other Asian countries from Japan as a launching pad. How big of a deal is that to you? Now, I know to a lot of people and things you'll see in normal kind of social environmental pressures, like career as far as titles and money, and then family. Do you have a mate and and children and like do you stay married? Yeah, staying married and having kids. So those are like standard. I'm not putting them down, but those are more standard. Going to 23 countries is something that some people would like to do, maybe other people wouldn't, and those who would maybe wouldn't be into it as much as you are. So you have to ask yourself how much you're into it, and there's nothing wrong with that. You find joy from that as much as you find joy from that. No one can tell you what that quantity is. But you should be aware that in the world, oftentimes, I know from my end being an Nyy'xai, that how much value I place on my ideas, on my intellectual integrity, on my autonomy of workspace. There's certain things that are like really important to me, and I've been given a lot of pressure through life of not that. You know what I mean? That's an inordinate amount to care about that, to the point that you care about it more than some of these other standard items. Sometimes I've realized maybe I should account for those, and other times, more often for me, but I'm like, no, that doesn't, I see your point, but it doesn't trump my need to have some of the other things I already mentioned. Okay, so as a Nyy'xai, I don't think it'll be maybe quite as bad. Nyy'xai are a little more twitchy that way, but Nyy'xai do share a lot of that, in that you're going to have things that give you fulfillment, that give you, that peak for you, that are not going to fit into systemic ranking, your job title and the cash you get from that, or like a traditional relationship, and a sense of legacy, family, something going beyond you, in a physical way. They will go beyond you and continue your line genetically. So I guess, yeah, I would just ask yourself that. And again, what you do with that is fine. But my Nyy'xai just kind of noted that accomplishment is being equated to no family and career, but it's not equating accomplishment to not going to more countries. And I assume you have various kind of things you'd like to do while traveling. So we'll say like experiences, or whatever. We'll say learnings. You have learnings, so you're going to get to more places and have more learnings versus family and career. And you're trying to weigh how that would work out, but just make sure you account for those things, because right there, that's not a successful. That's kind of just a fear. Just telling you, like Nyy'xai's very good at not flinching. That's a fear. That's a fear statement. I'm not going to accomplish anything. No family, no career. That would have to be balanced out about what you did get from going the other way. Now, whether or not it balances one way or the other scale, that's for your Nyy'xai to weigh. But my Nyy'xai has another weighing mechanism. It's like, yeah, but you got to put all the weights in the scale. yeah. All the weights have to go on the scale, and then you can weigh them. Let's see. Okay. On the mate, something to think about is, well, I'll talk about Alice Roberts real quick here. Alice Roberts is someone who I think is amazing Nyy'xai, and she's got really cool shiny energy. She does a lot of cool exotic things, and she is also well respected in like a professional sense, and she also has a happy family life. Okay, so first, I'll just go back to the fact that that's not a guarantee. You can't guarantee that will happen, but you can try and go that way. So then the question is how does that come about? What decides what? So one thing that I saw in an interview recently is that she has a stay-at-home husband, and that kind of gets into the riff of what kind of husband you would get and how would you meet that person and be the kind of person they want to marry. Because the more they help with that, the better. So in her case, because they asked her about how do you do the family and this and that, and being Superwoman, and she's like, I have a stay-at-home husband. I mean, and that's the honest answer, is that's how she's able to travel and do what she does and so forth, is she has the kind of husband that would go along with that. So, yeah, I guess you kind of have to kind of just think on what would be the right thing and how would you go about getting that. And then you also factor in time, as in time to get to these thresholds. So in the case of meeting the possible marriage mate, how much time will it take to do that? Because it's going to be random, so it's going to be a spectrum of time of when that happens. Then once you've met that person, how does it long take to attract them? And then once you're attracted, how long does it take to become like, steadies, boyfriend, girlfriend, an item? And then from there, how long does it take to move that person to marriage? So that's 4 stages of time that you need to account for, and what you'll be doing in that time as you wait for that threshold lock to open, versus in other ways you can go and what is holding you. So perhaps maybe going with the country thing, maybe it's money. Maybe the amount of money you have is what is sort of like the threshold that you have to go through in order to open up new vistas. You see what I'm saying? So you want to kind of think about how much you can handle the time as you wait for the next thing that's going to unlock in that pathway to happen. Doing some of that will help make it more real to you. It's something that the worldview map powers do a lot as they're thinking about something. They will simulate, they will vision, they will imagine what it's like to do that and try and like walk it out. Like it's a trick I've learned, and I actually think Vi Alpha might do this even more. So this might be quite helpful to you with Vi, is like trying to imagine walking out that day and seeing if you want to keep doing that and enact it more in real life, or you actually find it a bit heavy to walk out that life in your head. So that's something to do, kind of walk it out both ways. All right, I think that's all I have. Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And bye world, back to the data push. Bye-bye.